All right, so we got this Project Veritas versus the New York Times. I'm in the camp of Curtis Yarvin, Mencius Bulldog. His theory seems to be pretty good, pretty accurate, that the New York Times is just an unofficial wing of the government, of the actual state. You can't. It's hard to compete with them. It's hard to get rid of them, destroy them, because basically they can break news. They have all sorts of information that the government, whatever the government wants people to know or to quote unquote leak. They have back channels, back doors, and those reporters have exclusive information. You could start your own media company, but government personnel are not going to secretly leak stuff to you. Now, that's a problem because what do they get in exchange? Well, the New York Times is beholden to the state in exchange for that. For example, during the COVID response, somebody would try to write an article, publish it in the New York Times, slamming the FDA. The government has a bunch of failures. People want to publish an article there, but they can't. They can't publish stinging real criticism of the government, because otherwise the government agencies are going to stop leaking to them. So there's got this crazy symbiosis. It's a very nasty, vicious circle. And what seems to happen is James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, was an enemy of the state designated. So the state apparatus used
FBI
to raid their office and to obtain exclusive privileged documents between the lawyers and James O'Keefe about publishing Joe Biden's daughter's diary or something. Well, the FBI, apparently, nobody knows for sure, but that's the only way it's possible, actually leaked their correspondence to the New York Times. The New York Times did an expose, Project Veritas sued, and now we have this situation. The New York Times has blasted a judge who ordered the paper to return documents they obtained from the conservative activist group Project Veritas. In an opinion piece, the Times editorial board lambasted Justice Charles Wood's decision as dangerous, unconstitutional, and highly unusual. I do believe journalists do have the right to publish leaked and hacked, stolen things if it's in a matter of newsworthy stuff, not just personal salacious gossip, but if this stuff matters to the nation. Let's say if Bank of America CEO were doing something shady and somebody hacked their email account, well, they should be able to publish that. The only issue is they must obtain that stuff fair and square, whether it's you bribe somebody to leak the stuff to you, or you hack it yourself, or some hacker with some different motive does this information dump on you. But you don't have the right to use the government and the FBI or the CIA or whatever to take documents from people and then leak it, because you're completely playing in an unfair playing field. Project Veritas can't use the FBI and the CIA to raid New York Times, or it can't use the NSA to spy on the New York Times communication and then leak that. If they could, then all bets are off. That would be fair, and then we could claim First Amendment. But no, they have a completely unfair playing field. And New York Times is trying to hide behind the First Amendment, which is complete bullshit. The Times has published stories about the far-right activist group alleged deceptive practices that border on political spying. The media critic warned that judge's ruling sets dangerous precedent for the First Amendment rights. The newspaper vowed to seek a stay on the judge's order and file an appeal. So the New York Times has blasted a judge who ordered the paper to return documents obtained from the conservative activist Project Veritas. Coming from an op-ed piece penned by publication editorial board, the Times top brass utilized the power of the printed page to express their distaste towards the New York Supreme Court Justice Charles Wood's Friday ruling. Barred from publishing the legally sensitive papers, that potentially contain incriminating communications between the firm's lawyers and the storied news outlet contends the jurist decisions violates the First Amendment. And, I mean, what did they publish? What did they publish that was so, quote-unquote, exposing? I'm sure it was something along the lines of, hey, we got the daughter of Biden's diary that we paid for, bribed somebody, who paid somebody to get. And can we legally publish this? And the lawyer just gave him an opinion. Is that what's so super incriminating about it? I mean, it seems ridiculous. In a verbose opinion piece titled "A Dangerous Court Order Against the New York Times," how self-serving. The paper's editorial board, a lineup of their most league journalists, lauded journalists, lambasted the Woods decision as unconstitutional, highly unusual, astonishingly broad injunction against the new organization. Well, that's that's kind of part of who said it was Milton Friedman said something about don't pick a fight with people that order ink by the barrel. The board began the piece by comparing their halted coverage of the conservative group, which came under federal scrutiny earlier this year after its alleged theft of a diary belonging to President Joe Biden's daughter, Ashley, to an instance decades ago when the paper sought to publish the now infamous Pentagon Papers, but it was blocked by then-President Richard Nixon administration. The Times sued, and then case reached the Supreme Court, which the court eventually choosing to side with the Times, an occurrence that had the board chose to use as a precedent for their piece. Quote, that sentiment reflects one of the oldest and most enduring principles of our legal system, end quote. A portion of the piece reads, the government may not tell the press what it can and cannot publish. The principle long predates the Constitution, but so there would be no mistake, the nation's founders included this safeguard in the Bill of Rights anyway. But would the nation founding fathers, would they even dream that you would journalistic newspaper outlet, they would use the actual government power to obtain documents from a private individual? Yeah, right. On Friday, however, the essay continues. New York Times trial court judge broke from president when he issued an order blocking the Times from publishing or even reporting further on information that it had obtained related to Project Veritas, the conservative sting group that traffics in hidden cameras and fake identities to target liberal politicians in an interest group as well as traditional news outlets. I mean, the funny thing is, this is probably because their legal tussle over this. The Project Veritas's stock actually probably is going to go up as far as people knowing who they are, and as far as people looking into the issue, like with the diary or whatever. I mean, they're just becoming more and more famous. The order, a highly unusual, astonishingly broad injunction against the news organization, was issued by the State Supreme Court Justice Charles Wood, who wrote at the Times' decision to publish excerpts from the memos written by Project Veritas lawyers, cries out for court intervention to protect the integrity of the judicial process. So, O'Keefe and the group have been heavily criticized for allegedly using deceptive tactics to expose what it describes as liberal media bias. Well, they just showed it, right? Not only did they show liberal media bias, but they just showed that the FBI and the actual government deep state colluding with the New York Times to expose or to embarrass their enemies. Elizabeth Locke, the lawyer from Project Veritas, said, quote, today's ruling affirms that the New York Times behavior was irregular and outside the boundaries of law. The court's thoughtful and well-researched opinion is a victory for the First Amendment for all journalists and affirms the sanctity of the attorney-client relationship. O'Keefe and Project Veritas allege that the Times story is meant as nothing more than a smear campaign against the group. The following Friday ruling, O'Keefe said that the Times so blinded by its hatred of Project Veritas that everything it does result in a self-inflicted wound. The group has been suing over September 2020. The Times article describes as a video it released that allegedly voter fraud connection to the campaign of U.S. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a Minnesota Democrat. The New York Times reported that the allegations that made in the video were made through identified sources with no verbal evidence. The media critics have frowned upon Wood's decision as they argued it threatened the freedom of the press. The story keeps going on and on and on. An attorney for O'Keefe also accused Department of Justice for tipping off the New York Times about the recent raids on current and former employees, while suggesting federal prosecutors may have also leaked the group's legal communications. The FBI conducted raids on O'Keefe's New York home and those of others connected to the Project Veritas this month, seizing 2 of O'Keefe's cell phones, among other items. Days later, the New York Times published a report based on the memos from the group's lawyer, revealing his legal advice on the group's use of false identities and undercover filming tactics that were eschewed by most modern journalists. Later that day, a federal judge ordered the DOJ to stop extracting data from the phones, granting a request from O'Keefe's legal team made a day before an independent party to be appointed to oversee the review of the confiscated devices. Well, unfortunately, with the New York Times, or actually especially if it's found out that the leaker was people that work in the government, the DOJ or whatever, they obviously violated some laws. They violated their duties as public officials to be completely bipartisan or stay out of politics. Somebody should definitely go to jail for this. People, some heads should roll, because it's not just one person. I'm sure this is a couple other people, but unfortunately, nothing's going to happen, I bet.